Hello, my name is Steve Ems, and I'm the lead architect for development tooling for WebSphere sMash. In this video, I'd like to show you some new features in App Builder that make it even easier to build form-based applications with WebSphere sMash. A couple things we'd like to do before we get into the development steps. One is let's take a look at a simple example to show you the features of the application that we'll be building. This example shows a list of runners. The table on the left shows the records in the database. The form allows us to create additional entrants. You can also use the form to update entries. And the form also provides client-side validation. So these are basic steps that you would expect from a form-based application. And before we build this application in App Builder, let's take a look at one more thing, component picture of the application. This view will help us understand the steps that we're about to go through in App Builder. So the application will be built in an AJAX style. The user interface running in the browser interacts with a server to manipulate the data. A server will be a sMash application, makes use of Zero Resource Model. ZRM is a generic library that's part of the sMash platform. It provides model-based data APIs. So using ZRM, developers need only describe the data schema in a simple model file. The resource handler will expose the entity model to HTTP, which allows the client to interact over the network. Now within the browser, there are three principal components. The data store, which is a non-visible widget, interacts with the entity and the server, and is also wired into two visible widgets, the grid and form. Now the new features of App Builder support two different styles of application development, top-down and bottom-up. In the top-down approach, the developer begins by creating the user interface. They create the form first, and the model is generated. In the bottom-up approach, it's just the reverse. You begin by creating the model and generating the form. We'll go through the steps of a bottom-up style in App Builder, and then I'll show you the steps that differ the build using a top-down approach. All right, so let's jump into App Builder. We're starting from scratch here, so let's create a new application we'll call Entrance. Open this application for editing. And we'll begin through the New File menu. We're building in a bottom-up style, so we're going to create a new model. We'll call Entrance. App Builder alerts us to the fact that we need to add a runtime dependency to inherit the ZRM support. What you see here is a visual model editor. We're going to create the model corresponding to the example that we saw. So we have two strings, first name, last name, and an integer for the bib number. Now we can set field names and labels. The first one will be called first name. Last name. And the bib number. Let's make all those required. All right, we've created the model. Now there's two more things we need to do on the server side to finish the job. First, we need to create the database tables that correspond to the model. So we'll run the zero model sync, which is a ZRM command, parses the models, creates the databases and tables. The second piece is to create the resource handler to provide the HTTP access to the entity. This is named the same as the model. Now we don't need to implement all of these detailed methods. Since we're using ZRM, We can make use of a shortcut and just delegate the HTTP handling to the Zerm framework. So we're done with the back end. Now we can create the files in the application that represent the user interface. So let's start by creating the form. And we are generating the form from a model. So we pick the model to generate from. Another runtime dependency on Zero Dojo. All right, and here we have the visual form editor showing the generated form. You see the information that we had entered into the model, the first name, last name. We could make changes here if we wanted to, although we don't need to. Let's just change the title. But this is ready to go to get us the example up and running. All right, one more file that we need to create is the HTML page. Let's make it the default page. So here we're going to put all the widgets together for the client interface. What you see is the visual page editor. And first thing we'll do is to put our data store on the page. Call that the entrance store. And this needs to be bound to entity from the server side, which is the same name as the model that we created, the entrance. All right, let's go back to the create palette and put our two visible widgets on the page. Start with the data grid and a form. All right, we need to wire these into the data store. We'll set the ID for the grid, wired to the entrance store, and let's set the columns that we want to display from the table, which basically would be all of them. All right, let's also set the properties for the form. We need to link to the metadata associated with the form, which we had called entrant form. And we wire it to the grid. And we're done. We can start this application. And now open the page in another tab. And here's the application running. The table is empty because of course we have no data in there yet. Let's add stone to the list. And there you go, including client-side validation. So we just went through those steps end to end to create this simple but yet powerful form-based application. Let's go back to App Builder and look at the different steps that you would take if you were to build the application in the top-down approach. So for starters, you would create a new form. Let's call it Other. The form editor comes up basically empty. We follow the same example. We would create two text fields and a number. We could go through, set the labels. We can also set properties on the field to indicate, for example, which ones are required. And you could work through the form that way. And then you would generate the model from the form. We'll call this one Other, to be generated from the other form. And here's the model editor showing the generated model that corresponds. That concludes our walkthrough of the new features of App Builder for building form-based applications. We talked about both top-down and bottom-up development styles, and we looked at the visual editors that are available. So we look forward to your comments and suggestions. Please join us out on the Project Zero forums. We look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for watching.